In the heart of Southeast Asia, Vietnam is soaring to new heights. Modern skyscrapers punctuate the skyline of Ho Chi Minh City, while Hanoi's bustling streets are alive with the hum of scooters and the vibrant energy of commerce. High-tech factories produce everything from Nike sneakers to Samsung smartphones, and the country's economy is growing at a remarkable 8% annually. To put this into perspective, China is growing at 5.2% annually, and the USA at 2.5%. So, safe to say, Vietnam is a country on the rise, competing on the global stage with economic powerhouses. But just 3 decades ago, this wasn't the case. Vietnam was one of the poorest countries in the world, reeling from the devastating aftermath of the Vietnam War. The nation faced immense challenges, from economic isolation to widespread poverty. So how did Vietnam transform from such dire straits to a burgeoning economic miracle? This is how countries work. Let's find out. First, let's rewind. From 1955 to 1975, Vietnam endured a costly and divisive war between North Vietnam with its communist government and South Vietnam backed by the United States. This was the Vietnam War, and the damage to the country was incalculable. It claimed the lives of over 58,000 American soldiers and millions of Vietnamese. In 1975, the communists finally emerged victorious, unifying Vietnam into the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. However, the immediate aftermath of the war was devastating. The country's infrastructure was in ruins, millions were displaced, and the economy was in complete shambles. Vietnam faced dire economic challenges, including severe food shortages, a collapsed industrial base, and international isolation due to trade embargoes. The GDP per capita at the time was only $300 a year. Yikes! The centrally planned economy, modeled after the Soviet Union, struggled due to outdated planning, war devastation, and low productivity. Recognizing the urgent need for change, the Vietnamese Communist Party launched the Doi Moi, or renovation reforms, in 1986. These reforms aimed to transition the economy from a centrally planned system to a socialist-oriented market economy, embracing market forces and allowing private enterprise. In short, Vietnam, although under a communist party, readily embraced the Western mechanisms of commerce. It's these changes that completely transformed Vietnam's economy. Fast forward to today, Vietnam's poverty rate has plummeted from 70% in the post-war decade to just 4.2% now, a remarkable achievement. GDP per capita has soared from just under $300 in the post-war decade to an impressive $15,470 on a PPP basis, and the success of the Doi Moi reforms has transformed Vietnam from a war-torn, impoverished nation into one of the fastest-growing economies in the world. So let's delve into these reforms. At its core, the Doi Moi reforms eliminated economic barriers and implemented market-oriented policies that intertwined national security and economic growth. The success of the program stemmed from several key factors: trade liberalization, domestic reforms, and substantial investments in human and physical resources. First of all, with trade liberalization. Previously, Vietnam's trade was heavily restricted under a centrally planned economy, with severe limitations on foreign trade and investment, leading to chronic shortages and inefficiencies. Vietnam made a bold shift towards global economic integration with export-oriented growth. By reducing trade barriers and joining international organizations such as ASEAN in 1995 and the WTO in 2007, Vietnam positioned itself as an attractive player in the global market. These steps not only opened the door to foreign goods and investment, but also brought Vietnam into the fold of global trade norms and dispute resolution mechanisms. Simultaneously, the Vietnamese government vigorously promoted export-oriented growth, focusing on developing competitive manufacturing and agricultural sectors. Special Economic Zones, or SEZs, and industrial parks became hubs of activity, attracting significant foreign direct investment, or FDI, with their favorable tax and regulatory conditions. This influx of FDI brought essential capital, technology, and expertise, enabling the rise of key export industries such as textiles, electronics, and agricultural products, now making Vietnam the largest apparel exporter and second largest electronics exporter in Southeast Asia. The more you know. But none of this would have been achieved without the internal domestic reforms. Before the Doi Moi reforms, Vietnam's economy was characterized by a centrally planned system with state control over all major economic activities, resulting in widespread inefficiencies and low productivity. Domestically, the 1986 Foreign Investment Law was a major legal reform aimed at creating a more favorable business environment within Vietnam. It reformed regulatory frameworks to attract foreign investment by offering incentives and protections and reducing red tape. This boosted Vietnam's ranking in the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report from 77th to 55th, and the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business rankings from 104th to 68th. These are giant leaps that countries struggle to make. Now, with market liberalization, previously private enterprise in the country was virtually non-existent. Market liberalization involved allowing private enterprises to operate and compete alongside state-owned enterprises. This shift encouraged entrepreneurship and innovation within the domestic economy. Land reforms enabled farmers and businesses to lease land for long-term use, increasing agricultural productivity and incentivizing investments. Additionally, the deregulation of prices allowed market forces to determine the value of goods and services, improving efficiency and resource allocation. Previously, the financial sector was underdeveloped and tightly controlled by the state, with limited banking services and little access to credit for private enterprise. It was then restructured to include the establishment of private banks and the modernization of the financial system to provide better services and financial products. The State Bank of Vietnam adopted more flexible monetary policies to stabilize the economy and control inflation. Moreover, the development of capital markets provided new avenues for investment and growth, including the establishment of stock exchanges and the growth of a bond market. The public sector was also previously dominated by inefficient state-owned enterprises and plagued by bureaucratic inefficiencies and corruption, draining state resources. Therefore, the restructuring and privatization of state-owned enterprises, or SOEs, improved their performance and competitiveness. Administrative reforms streamlined bureaucracy, reduced corruption, and created a more transparent business environment. Decentralization efforts delegated decision-making authority to local governments, improving the efficiency of public services. These comprehensive domestic reforms laid the foundation for Vietnam's economic transformation, creating a more conducive environment for both domestic and foreign investments. Now, with infrastructure development, investment in public infrastructure has driven Vietnam's economic progress in recent decades. Between 2010 and 2017, 53% of its official development assistance, or ODA, went into infrastructure projects. ODA is financial aid given to developed countries to support the economic development and welfare of developing countries. This indicates that over half of the foreign aid received was used for developing infrastructure, highlighting infrastructure's priority in Vietnam's development strategy. Vietnam has invested heavily in transportation, including highways, airports, and seaports. Recently, infrastructure investment has reached 5.7% of GDP, the highest in Southeast Asia and second only to China. According to the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report 2019, Vietnam ranks 77th out of 141 countries in overall infrastructure quality, 66th in transport infrastructure, and 87th in utility infrastructure. The transportation sector is rapidly improving, covering road, rail, inland waterways, coastal shipping, and aviation. These significant infrastructure investments allow for the efficient movement of goods within the country and have laid a strong foundation for continued economic growth, positioning it as a rising star in Southeast Asia. Since 1986, Vietnam has significantly reformed its education system, resulting in a more educated population and greater economic opportunities. The Doi Moi Reforms have increased current education levels compared to previous generation. The World Bank's 2018 study, Growing Smarter, Learning and Equitable Development in East Asia and Pacific, highlighted Vietnam as having one of the region's best education systems. Enrollment rates in kindergarten, primary, lower secondary, and high school all increased significantly, and higher education saw a 125% rise in student numbers between 2010 and 2020. These highly educated people are what is driving key industries in the country and are in demand not only nationally, but also attractive to international companies that find a profitable home in Vietnam. Now, Vietnam's economy is rapidly growing due to various industries. From a meager $14 billion back in 1986, the International Monetary Fund projects Vietnam's economy will reach around $469.7 billion USD in 2024, maintaining its status as the 5th largest economy in Southeast Asia. As one of the fastest growing economies in the region, Vietnam is an attractive destination for businesses and investors, and understanding the key industries driving the growth is crucial for success in the Vietnamese market. Now, Vietnam's reputation as a prime investment destination in the textile industry has expanded to encompass high-tech manufacturing. Giants like Samsung, LG Electronics, Nokia, and Intel are heavily investing in Vietnam. Other sectors such as information and communication technology, automotive, and medical devices are also experiencing significant growth. Textiles play a significant role in Vietnam's economy, with over 6,000 companies employing around 2.5 million people. In 2020, Vietnam became the world's second largest seller of ready-made clothes. Vietnam's primary export is now electronics, surpassing traditional goods like coffee, textiles, and rice. Samsung is a significant contributor, responsible for over a third of its global production. By 2021, Samsung has invested over $17.5 billion in Vietnam. Exports of smartphone and computer parts now generate more revenue than oil and clothing combined. Tourism has emerged as a significant contributor to Vietnam's economy. By the end of 2024, experts anticipate that the tourism industry will account for over 6.4% of the country's total income. Vietnam's IT industry is rapidly expanding, attracting global tech entrepreneurs and local startups alike. There are approximately 14,000 businesses in the IT sector, generating around $148 billion USD in revenue in 2022. Vietnam boasts a robust digital ecosystem and is the 3rd largest startup hub in Asia. Since the Doi Moi Reforms, Vietnam has transitioned from struggling with food shortages to becoming a leading global producer and exporter of agricultural products like coffee, peanuts, and rice. Agriculture remains the largest source of employment in Vietnam, providing livelihoods for approximately 13.9 million people in 2022. The sector has seen significant growth in both quantity and the value of exports, reflecting Vietnam's competitive advantage in agriculture. Well, all of this growth doesn't come with challenges. Vietnam's impressive economic growth is also accompanied by potential challenges, particularly in its heavy reliance on exports in a globalized economy that may be slowing down. Fluctuations in global economic trends, such as currency strength, regional wars, and supply chain disruptions, could impact its attractiveness to investors, given exports' significant contribution to GDP and prosperity. However, as of now, Vietnam stands to benefit from global trade tensions, offering an alternative manufacturing base amid the US-China trade disputes. Ever since the Trump administration escalated the trade war with China, US-China tensions have further increased foreign direct investment in Vietnam, with companies like Apple and Samsung shifting production from China to Vietnam. For example, Foxconn announced a $300 million investment in northern Vietnam. Google plans to move up to half of its Pixel phone production there, and Microsoft uses Vietnam for some Xbox production. This shift has resulted in an 8.9% increase in foreign direct investment from January to June 2022 alone. Furthermore, Vietnam's expanding middle class presents opportunities for domestic consumption to drive GDP growth. As more people have the means to purchase goods and services, this trend is fueling rapid expansion for both local and foreign businesses, potentially transforming the economy. Now, despite potential challenges from shifts in the global economy, Vietnam has opportunities for sustained growth driven by domestic consumption and its role as a manufacturing hub. Despite external pressures, Vietnam is progressing at an amazing pace and forging a unique path forward. So, in conclusion, in the last 30 years, life in Vietnam has greatly improved due to the Doi Moi Reforms, which built a strong economy and strengthened the country's social ties. Vietnam has been moving forward at a rapid pace ever since. Pretty much every part of the country is growing. It's attracting global companies, from consumer brands to tech giants like Google and IBM. Now, while it continues to improve its infrastructure and education, Vietnam's rise shows how investing in your people and opening markets to free trade can create great economic opportunities. So here's to another 30 years of growth. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into Vietnam's economic miracle, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into global economic stories. Let us know in the comments what topics you'd like us to cover next. Until next time.